It's time once again for another edition of Talk to Me. And now, here's Emmy himself, 8-time Emmy Award-winning journalist, Maynard Eaton.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Talk to Me. This is our weekly conversation with movers and shakers from the arts, politics, business. This week we have a business leader, a man who's coaching, leading, divining the next generation of business leaders. His name is Jay Bailey. Jay, thank you so much for being with us. You are leading the Rice Innovation Center. It's named after,
yes, sir,
the spirit of Herman J. Russell, H.J. Russell, a legendary pioneer Bill-like businessman. Tell us a bit about who he was to those who don't know.
It's a story that has to be more told, Maynard. I mean, kind of like yours. We've had the privilege in Atlanta to walk amongst kings, and I think we take it for granted. That there have been so many great men and women that have crossed this path in this city. Herman Russell is one of those stories that I think is underrepresented and undertold. This is the man that built half of our skyline in Atlanta.
Right.
This is the guy, if you're black and doing business in Atlanta, thank Herman Russell. He integrated the Chamber of Commerce at the city level and the state level.
That's right.
This is a brother at the age of 23 who was part of a group that bought 200-acre cattle farm to build a community for black people, Collier Heights. This brother had a pool inside his house in the early 60s with a tennis court where a young Dr. King used to go and swim and try to figure out how he wanted to change the world. Atlanta's the civil rights, heart of the civil rights movement. But as we know, historically, we didn't have a whole lot of large civil unrest in Atlanta.
Right.
But one of the big ones was the student movement, where 110 students got locked up because of that movement. They made one phone call and one man bailed them all out, Herman Russell. Wow. And if we think about bringing it forward, where I'm sitting right now, you got to think of a black man 74 years ago, when they were still lynching brothers for not thinking too much of themselves, having the audacity to build a headquarter building that is a full city block wide and over 50,000 square feet with his name on it, H.J. Russell and Company. He built that building intentionally because if you look out of my office window, you can see Spelman, Morehouse, Clark, Morris Brown, ITC, and Morehouse School of Medicine. Back then, you couldn't go to the University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, or Emory. He built this campus right here intentionally on this hill. So as black students matriculated from all over the country to go to some of the best schools in the country, they could see the physical manifestation of what was possible for people that looked like them. This guy was visionary. And even after his death, H.J. Russell and Company were still the largest black-owned construction firm in the country. Concessions International is a top airport concessionaire and hospitality company overall. So when you start talking about the legacy of one man, we could go on, brother, but he was a bad brother and really could show the world that you can overcome anything. And I'm really honored to be a part of carrying that legacy forward.
Jay, I got it. You mentioned something that I'll never forget now that you mentioned it. First time I had the pleasure of interviewing Herman J. Russell in his home, I'd never seen a black family with a pool inside the house.
Yeah, brother.
I was dumbfounded. This man's got a pool inside his home, a black guy. Yep. I was just stunned. I really was. That little tidbit, really, I'll never forget that while looking at her, Andy Young was sitting around the side of it like his clubhouse or something. It was just mind-boggling.
Indeed.
Speaking of something else mind-boggling, now we're going to talk about where you're going, what you're doing, but you recently unplugged from the world. You took some time off. You and your lovely wife, NBC News correspondent Blayne Alexander, who's one of the best in the business, just had a new addition to the family. Sage is your new daughter.
Sage is our whole world. I think she eclipses daughter and really comes in the whole world, brother. It's I've never known love like this, Maynard. When we start talking about legacy, there are a couple of things, man. One of my personal slogans is plant seeds that will grow trees whose shade you may never sit under. It takes on new meaning for me, man, to have a child now that I have legacy to pass down. Where it stuck for me, though, too, and what drives me most, I had a good friend of mine, approached me when Blayne was pregnant. And he said, Jay, we all know you're going to be a great dad. You're going to give everything you have to this child. We know that. You're going to be a great father. Where I need you to focus, though, brother, is trying to be a really amazing great grandfather.
Ah,
And it hit me hard because at first I didn't catch it, Maynard. It was, what am I doing right now that can impact 7 generations yet unborn? How can my life have some real relevancy to generations that I'll never meet? And so when I look into our daughter's eyes, it just makes it all real, because there are very few times you get to be a part of something you know will outlast you.
right.
There are even rare moments where you get to be a part of something that could potentially change the course of history. And the urgency, outside of all the love and the giggles and the cuteness and how we're just smitten by this little girl, this little human being, there's a swift urgency that's now in front of me around change making, around legacy building,
Right.
around impacting the world around me, brother. And so Sage has really brought that 100% 360 for me, 180, and it's real. But we love that little bundle of joy, man. She's amazing.
I gotta ask you though, unplugged from the world. That's easier said than done. You're a
Oh,
top businessman. I mean, cell phones, Facebook, all that kind of stuff, in and out of your life all the time. How did you pull back? That's not easy, was it?
well, here's the deal. I think I posted about it when I came back.
Yeah.
I unplugged from the world, but guess what? It kept spinning. And, I think that sometimes we take ourselves so very seriously, Maynard, that we don't realize that those things that matter most, we give the least amount of time to. And I
That's true.
took 2 months to really say, you know what? There's nothing more important in this world than my family. There's nothing more important in this world than this little girl and me pouring into her and building a relationship and building that bond for these 2 months. And guess what, man? Everything that I left on July or June 30th was
It's
there when
still
I
there.
came back
Still
September
there.
1st, and the world kept spinning. And so it's a lesson that I had to learn, because most of my life, man, to your point, I just didn't think it was possible to unplug for 2 months,
Yeah.
60 plus days. No way. But it taught me a real lesson about being present and the power of presence. Taught me a real lesson about getting quiet and focused. So yeah, brother, it's a lesson I learned and I hope to carry forward with me. And it was time that I really needed to take away. Hell, I took 2 months. Blaine's taking 6 months. So she's really getting the lesson.
She's writing her own story now for
Oh,
sure,
brother,
right?
absolutely, man. For sure. For sure.
Great journalist. I really salute her, as we all do. You know that. But
She's killing it.
you said something about how having Sage made you think about future generations, your great great grandchildren. Isn't that what Herman Russell has done? Left a
Oh,
legacy for others to profit from, to learn from. Isn't that what you're coaching and helping him produce in his?
you can't talk about business in this city if you're Black if you don't mention at least a footnote of Herman Russell.
Right.
If you're talking about in construction, I mean, he was an incubator and an accelerator before there were even terms. You look at names like T. Dallas Smith, who's killing it, Egbert Perry, who's killing it, C.D.
Yeah.
Moody, who's killing it, Noel Khalil, who's killing it. I could go on and on and on of Black men and women that are at the top of their fields in construction, architecture, real estate. They all got their start right here in this building. And he would pour into talent in hopes of seeing them cast out further than he would ever have imagined. That was his goal. And
Is that,
so
is that what you're doing? Is that what you're
I mean,
doing? Is that what?
and here I am, because I tell you what, Maynard, I grew up in South DeKalb County, the deck, right? It was different from Southwest Atlanta.
Yeah.
I used to remember stealing my mother's car at 14 to drive around Southwest Atlanta illegally, but to look at those houses, because I didn't believe Black people could live in houses that look like that. I saw Mr. Herman's house, Mr. Russell's house, because they had a tennis court in the back there. I like you with the pool. I didn't know about the pool till later, but a Black person with a tennis court at their house, I didn't understand that. And so even a kid that was just in the energy and the aura of his being was inspired. And that inspiration leads to aspiration. And I started my first business at 12. Mr. Russell started his at 11. So yes, as I sit in this building, Mr. Russell is not here with us anymore. But literally, as we continue with this legacy in the building that I'm sitting in right now, the house that Herman built, we are looking at how do we create the next Herman J. Russell? How do we support the next business that's going to grow and scale and have impact and create jobs? It's our charge, but we have the script. We just got to remember our lines, Maynard.
But not too many folks have followed that script necessarily. He's still a rarity. Although there are black business success all across this country, and Atlanta being an example, it's not many Herman Russells that have emerged in the same sort of clout and cachet and influence he had across politics and business. You have a tough charge ahead of you, do you not?
Oh, brother, it's it's kind of like one of those things. If you believe in God, you got to understand that he touches individuals in a special way. Many people don't realize that Mr. Russell spoke with a debilitating speech impediment,
right,
almost handicapped.
right.
And so, he was the one that nobody saw coming. And I think that was his superpower, Maynard, that he let you think he was dumb all the way to the bank.
Right.
And before you knew it, you were getting hit over the head with it because you didn't see him coming. And
Jay, I gotta admit, when I first saw him speak interview, I could not believe he was not an articulate, flashy kind of guy. He was a humble, plain talking, hard to understand kind of guy who you knew was successful. I scratched my head. I said, "This guy."
Yep. And that's what he banked on, brother. He was the guy that was worth $100 million and drove a Ford Explorer. So when you talk about shoes to fill, brother, I can't have that conversation with you, Maynard, because I don't know if there's another one that's if it's me or somebody else that's going to be able to fill those God-given shoes for that time. I think that brother was appointed and anointed for that time that he lived in right then. And we're going to be hard-pressed if we see another Herman Russell cross our path while we live. Consider us fortunate. I mean, I think that there were so many things that added to his legacy and his life. This perfect storm of if you will, of civil rights and the emergence of Atlanta as a city. When you start to talk about opportunities for Black entrepreneurs and small businesses, Mr. Russell was right at the nexus of the perfect storm, and he rode it all the way to the finish.
I read, Jay, that one of your favorite phrases is "build as we climb." What does that mean for what you're doing?
It's a derivative of lifting as we climb. That's a pretty well-known slogan. But here's what I know. Lifting as we climb implies, Maynard, that I got to be there to reach my hand down and pull you up.
Okay.
If I build a staircase, everybody that comes after me, either if I'm here or not, if we build the staircase, everybody that follows that challenge after me is able to climb up over it, whether I'm here or not. That's the real legacy that I look at. How can you build the mechanisms, the systems to combat, rather than having to fight so hard individually and push and push and push individually? Let's build that infrastructure. Let's build that system. Let's build that mechanism where those that follow you don't have those same challenges.
So what are you doing, sir, at this Entrepreneur Center, RICE, as you call it? Are you coaching? Are you teaching? Are you training? What do I get when I go to the Russell Innovation Center? Who do I see?
So I stole the HBCU model. The HBCU model works. You find a brother that went to Morehouse. He paid $54,000 a year to go to school and matriculate. Spent 90% of his time in the classroom while he went there for 4 or 5 years. But if we ask him 20 years later at Spellhouse Homecoming to talk for 2 minutes about his experience at Morehouse, he ain't going to bring up a single class he took. It wasn't about the syllabus. It was not about the curriculum. You can put 5 Morehouse friends together, and some of them may not even know what each other's majors were. It was the community, the culture, the covenant. That's what made it what it was. I think far too often we build programs to be informative. We got a lot of knowledge and we want to just dump it on you because we know so much. Programs are built to be informative, not transformative. So how can we create a space that's more than just a program? How can we root it in community, culture, covenant, wrap it around a world-class curriculum, world-class instructors, world-class faculty, if you will, in a space? Because here's the important piece and why I say it's more than just a class or a program. Even in the Black Mecca, how many times, Maynard, do you get to walk inside a building that's owned and controlled by people that look like you?
That's true.
There's this deep sense of belonging, this safe space to fail and fly, this nexus of access, opportunity, and exposure, where now the resources and the access that I normally would feel disengaged from or detached from, I'm able to funnel it through this institution. So yes, there's coaching. Yes, there's curriculum. Yes, there's mentorship, but there's more. There's the collision that happens when entrepreneurs are in the same space and have access to all things. It's literally the self-confidence, the self-esteem, because if we don't focus on the whole entrepreneur, we're not moving the needle. What about the anxiety, the loneliness, the depression, the confidence, all of those things that are needed in the individual to be successful? So our platform, we hope to develop, and we've only been at this 3 years, brother, but we've had a lot of successes in 3 years. We've raised a little north of $34 million to help push this thing along. I'm committed to my board by the end of next year to be at that $50 million mark, to create a place on the West Side where our folks know they don't have to go to Buckhead to experience something nice. We've got to teach our community to see value in its own reflection again. And so that means creating institutions that are just more than, symbols of hope. We need institutions that manufacture hope at scale. And that's what we hope this place to be. So if you're an entrepreneur, we're in our big ideas model: inspire, develop, execute, accelerate, scale, just like college. If you want to take the metaphor out, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, PhD, master's program. I'm not going to take a guy that's leaving the post office and wants to figure out how he wants to start a business, and somebody that's doing $2 million in revenue. They shouldn't be in the same classes. We're going to meet you where you are and help you get your company to where it needs to be. And at this moment, we're industry agnostic. If you have a dream, if you have a business that you want to grow or create, there's a space for you here.
Having been in your space, having watched you work, it's a rare air. It's just something different about what you're doing, and just being in the building. Maybe it's a Russell mystique. I don't know. There's something different going on there. What are you doing? What brings you to the table? I know you won the winner of the Champion for Change following MLK's Footsteps Award in 2012. One of the many achievements you've had. But what equips you to try and lead this new generation?
I started my first business when I was 12. I bought my first house at 19.
Wow.
I made my first million by the time I was 23, 24 years old. But because I didn't have good money role models, I didn't have a good network. I went from living in a 10,000 square foot house in Country Club of the South to literally being homeless, Maynard, at 28, 29 years old.
Really?
Living in a 9x9 storage unit on Mountain Industrial Boulevard in Tucker. Seriously. It was there, though, brother, that I realized that by the world standards, I've been successful. The cars, the clothes, the houses, and everything else. I've been successful, but I had zero significance. I had done nothing to put a dent in this world. I had done nothing to change anybody else's life but mine. And my life up until that point was really littered with losses. Losing my mother, my college sweetheart, burying all my grandparents. So literally, I use money as the crutch. The more money I made, and guess what? If you drive a nice car and have a nice house, everybody assumes your life is perfect.
That's true.
So it was a perfect hiding place for a young kid that was depressed, and money was my crutch. But once I understood this thing called significance, everything started to change. I hitched a line with the organization Operation Hope. Stayed with them 7-8 years, helped them grow and scale to the global organization they are. But you know what? When I really decided to leave, I had grown my office from a closet in a basement to now we're on the 40th floor of the 191 building downtown. And we had just had a great event. We had Bill Clinton here, Fortune 50 CEOs, a global economic, summit. But I was in my office at 2 a.m. and I cried my eyes out. I felt just like I did in that 9x9 storage unit. I was getting all these awards. Like you said, Obama's tapping me on the back. We're raising a lot of money. We're growing. Everything into the world seems to be great. But I was crying my eyes out at 2 a.m. because I was looking at the skyline. And at that moment, the graduation rate for young Black men was 37% in Atlanta. We were fastly approaching to what we are now, the worst city in the country when it comes to economic inequality.
That's true.
We were then looking at the skyline, and I didn't see a single building that we owned or controlled in Atlanta, the Black Mecca. And, I started to just think that there's more that I could do. So I retired, started a logistics company, made my wife a promise that I'd never get another job again until this opportunity came along. And as I said before, there are just very few times in life you get to be a part of something will outlast you or could potentially change the course of history. And so I had to say yes. But I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I've been in the economic development space for a long time. I've been in the nonprofit empowerment space for a long time. And I think this opportunity at the Russell Center is different from anything else that I've experienced. But my life experiences have prepared me for this moment.
Jay, you're sitting in Atlanta, the Black Mecca, supposedly, but also the homes, the haves and the have-nots. What is the state of Black business? Not just there, but across the country, because Atlanta echoes other major cities across this country. Where
Mhm.
are we? Where are we today, sir? From where you sit?
We got a lot of work to do, Maynard. 96% of our businesses only have one employee and don't have the ability to scale.
Right.
The average white business is 11 times larger than the average black business. When you start to think about access, opportunity, and exposure, here's what I know. I know we lose GDP every year because the brilliant ideas that reside in brown and black, minds across the country never reach the marketplace because they don't believe they belong. And so when we start talking about the state of black business, by the numbers, we got a whole lot of work to do. But where my hope lies is in cities like Atlanta. You have places like the Russell Center. You have places like the Gathering Spot. You've got places like the Village Marketplace. There is something happening right now. And I think in Atlanta, we're uniquely positioned to capitalize on it. There are more black enrolled college students in Atlanta than anywhere else in the world. We've got the corporations that can be the customers of these companies that grow and scale. We've got all of these incubators, accelerators, all of these colleges. We've got the culture. We've got the colleges. We've got the community.
The poverty too, though, Jay. You got the poverty too. I mean,
but here's the deal. When we talk about poverty, that's where I get excited. When we talk about innovation, find me somebody more innovative on the planet than a single mother with 2 kids making 17 grand a year.
You're right.
I tap into that brilliance. That brilliance comes up with an idea to solve a problem. That problem being solved turns into an economic solution, and we create a pathway to prosperity. I bet on and bank on those in poverty because who's thinking stronger? Who's thinking harder? Who's more resilient? Who's tougher? Who's been able to make something out of nothing their entire existence usually? I just think, again, the only difference between Bankhead and Buckhead is access, opportunity, and exposure. That's it. And how do we bring a little bit of that? Because yes, now when we start talking about the poverty, we don't talk about it enough, about how it impacts who we are as a city. And I think that if we start to have that conversation by creating these spaces that are safe for people to onboard their ideas, to be exposed to what's possible, I think we've got a real shot at making at least some bit of difference. We won't solve the problem. We won't end poverty. I don't think there's any organization that will end poverty. But can we actually move the needle a little bit? I think that we can.
In closing, Jay, what do you say to other fathers about their grandchildren, other parents about their great-grandchildren? What can we look forward to in terms of the black community, but also from where you're sitting as a black entrepreneur, a man who's at the levers of where black business is going? What do you say to them, sir?
It's like my father-in-law said to me, man. And it resonated. For everything that's been bled for us, for everything that's been done to get us to this point, for all of the benefits, the leverage, the privilege that we have now, we just simply do not have the right to fail. And I say that strongly. Yeah. We don't have the right to fail. For everything that Herman Russell and Andy Young and all those that came before them and their great-great-grandparents as well, for everything and all the hell that they went through, to have you and I on this screen right now with laptops and Wi-Fi and everything that we have, talking about what we're talking about. We don't have the right to fail. So we have got to love each other in a different way. We have got to come together in a different way. None of us can do this by ourselves. And that's what I say to every entrepreneur in small business. Quit believing that you're self-made and you're on an island. It doesn't work that way. Community has always held us down, and community is what's going to carry us forward. And that's where I ended. That find your tribe. Let's build together. The African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. My aim is to go farther together.
He's something else, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Jay Bailey, the owner, the president of the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs, and he's one of the best. Thank you so much for joining us, Jay. I appreciate you.
Always good to talk to you. Indeed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. See you next week, folks.
I like it when you do that to me, baby. I like it when you do it to me, baby. Oh, baby. I like it when you do that to me, baby. Oh, yeah. I like it when you do it to me, baby. Check it out. Sometimes in our life there is a love that cannot be forgotten. My desires for you are stirring up inside my head and heart, and I miss you, and at times I'm completely polarized. said.